Heilman, a.k.a. Dynasty Dorks, and this is the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content, and contests, including our NFL Wins contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app to get your last-minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. Use promo code SGPN for $20 off. All right, thanks for tuning in. If this is your first time, we really appreciate it. We're going to talk about our My Guys today, and we really want to get straight into the content. I'll let you know the rules. I let the guys know I don't want any players inside the top 12. Brad, if he sends me a list of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Christian McCaffrey, and Jamar Chase as his My Guys,
and pretty good guys.
I'm sure those are his guys. But we want to go a little bit deeper, talking about guys that are kind of your league winners. These guys can bring massive value to your teams or be key pieces outside of that first 12 positional picks. And then for the tight ends, because the tight ends kind of stink, we give them outside of the top 6. So let's go straight into the quarterbacks with the first group. And so the first group right here, Brad, myself, and Bruni. We got all the SGPN guys on here. So, Brad, let's talk about your love for Jared Goff.
It's all about cost. We're talking about my guys. We're talking about for this season and a guy that's being drafted at ADP QB 17 who was top 10 in fantasy points per game, threw for almost 4,500 yards, had like a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He really did look like his prime self from when he was in St. Louis/LA. So I think another year in that system, the addition of Jahmyr Gibbs, another year with Amon-Ra, the addition of Sam Laporta, it really gives him another solid season. Also, 6 weeks in, he gets a little bit of juice. And that juice being Jameson Williams, which I'm pretty excited to see hit the field running super fast. So Jared Goff is my guy for the quarterback position.
Jared Goff only plays 3 games outdoors this year. I believe one of them is December in Chicago, but other than that, he's indoors on turf with a extremely fast squad. We'll talk about a few of those players later. I got Geno Smith, and if you could imagine, this, like the NFL draft could have gone extremely poorly for Geno Smith. They could have drafted Anthony Richardson with the 5th pick. They could have did a lot of different things. What did they do? They drafted a cornerback to help their defense, got the best receiver in the draft, and the day 2, they went and got another good running back. This offense was good last year. The defense was okay. The offensive line, I think, is the only weak point on this offense. But how is anybody going to cover DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba? Like, I love Garrett Wilson. I love Chris Olave. JSN was outplaying them on the same field at Ohio State. You can't ignore that. I know this guy doesn't run a blazing 40, but he's good at football. And you're going to tell me that you're going to bring your 3rd or 4th best corner over to go and cover this? Good luck. Like that's just not a good situation. So Geno Smith is the beneficiary. When you like all the receivers, the thing you got to do is you got to draft the quarterback. And in your super flex leagues, he is a perfect quarterback too. In your one quarterback leagues, if you don't get one of the top guys, I'm fine with falling back and taking Geno Smith with a very late ADP.
You even talk about the efficiency metrics that were just astronomical for Geno last year with his completion percentage and adjusted completion percentage of 78%. And at the first 3 quarters of the season was much higher than that. He did cool off a little bit in the back end of the season, but another guy who had a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, just absolute monster.
Yeah. And so, Brad, let's talk about Dak Prescott.
Yeah, look, I like Dak. I like the offense. He's got some pieces with Tony Pollard, Jake Ferguson, or Luke Shoemaker, or whoever ends up coming up for that tight end position. CeeDee Lamb is obviously a monster. Michael Gallup, a year removed from his ACL, and the new wide receiver addition in Brandon Cooks. They've got some pieces around them. We haven't even talked about guys like Jalen Tolbert coming into his second year, a fairly high draft pick that seems to be flashing in camp and that kind of thing. My biggest concern from a Dak Prescott perspective, and we talked about this a little bit, is can Jake Ferguson really step into that role that Dalton Schultz filled? And how is the play calling going to be a little bit different with the loss of Kellen Moore? So I have a little bit of hesitation with Dak because I want to see how the play calling is, how Dak responds with some of these new pieces and without Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, and so this is Bruni's pick. Make sure you follow our guy, SGPN. Bruni. And what was the ADP for Goff and Smith?
Yeah, so for Jared Goff, it was QB 17. Geno Smith is currently coming off of the board as QB 15, and Dak Prescott is QB 10.
All right, some good values.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But hey, we talked about all those dome games that Jared Goff gets to play. I have yet to go and see a game in a dome. But if I was going to look for tickets, unfortunately, my Brownies play outside. But if I'm going, you know what? I want to go see Jared Goff. I'm going to go check out gametime.co. It is the best and only way to go and buy tickets. It's fast, it's easy, and it can be for anything. Sports, music, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all that fun that you know you're going to have. So, flash deals. Right now, you can jump on there. I looked at getting some tickets to, again, my Brownies at Heinz Field. Oh, never mind. Acrisure Stadium here in Pittsburgh, nearby, for a fraction of the cost of what I paid last year to go see the Browns and the Ravens play. So you got to check it out. Don't bother all that planning, trying to get ticket deals early on. They have deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. So get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, theater, like I talked about. So snag those tickets without the stress with Game Time. Go and download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So again, go to Game Time app or gametime.co and use our promo code SGPN for $20 off.
Yeah, I'm taking the kids to go see SmackDown next week. So shout out. So, yeah, this is not a mistake here. We got double Danny Dimes. And as a true New York Giants fan, every time someone's got a Danny Dimes highlight or something to talk about, they always got to put some stupid picture of him looking stupid. And I get it. Just like any old New York Giants quarterback, he makes some stupid faces and does some stupid stuff. I get it. He's meme worthy. But look at that mustache, looking like Danny GQ right there. Got to show my guys some love. And J Mark and Sebastian, make sure you give them a follow. J Mark does a great job for SGPN doing their auction content. And then Sebastian keeps you up to date with your injury news. And so Danny Dimes, the reason that both of them want Danny Dimes on their team is the same thing. Second year in the Dable offense, you're looking at a guy that got massive upgrades on the offense. You got Darren Waller. You know, this team, I know everyone looks at Brian Dable and thinks they're going to try to replicate what the Bills do. Now, they're going to try to replicate similar stuff to the Chiefs. Mike Kafka is the play caller. He was the offensive play caller and passing game coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years ago. And so Travis Kelce was the star piece. Darren Waller is going to play that role. They got Jalen Hyatt as their version for the speed guy. They got Darius Slayton coming off the outside, Isaiah Hodgins, and then Paris Campbell does all the stuff under the middle. Then you got Wan'Dale Robinson and Sterling Shepard coming out of the slot. And then, of course, Saquon Barkley back there. So Danny Dimes was a top 10 quarterback last year. He won people leagues. He was a very good value last year. And, he didn't really throw as much because of the weapons he had. So you could see some more from Danny Dimes this year if he ups the passing game.
Yeah, he's QB 14 in ADP, very affordable. But we're the dynasty crew here, so I want to just shift us for just a second, and I want to look at some dynasty trades because they're very intriguing to me for Danny Dimes right now. So, would you rather have Danny Dimes or Brock Purdy and Dalvin Cook?
Danny Dimes.
Danny Dimes all day long. Would you rather have Danny Dimes and a slew of hot mess? Keontae Ingram, Van Jefferson, a late 2024 second, and then a 2024 first, a late 2023 second, and then a 24 first somewhere. So is really a first round pick for Danny Dimes. I mean, let's be honest here. Yeah,
I mean, you're looking at basically a 24 first and a 23 second for Danny Dimes.
Basically.
I mean, that's the value. So, I'm okay either way on that one. If you're going to sell him, that's what you're going to sell him for. But I'd rather just sell him and win games now. And I'd rather buy him and win games now versus selling him. But if you're selling him, that's what you're doing. But I don't think you're getting enough back if you're trading for, a late 24 first and a late 23 second.
And then here's the last one I'm going to talk about. Daniel Jones or Aaron Rodgers and a 24 second.
Yeah, I like this deal right here,
oh,
Jamie.
Jesus, yeah.
What was it again?
I'm sorry, I can't think because he said people thought he got ripped off, and yet he gives up Tony and a third for Danny Dimes. Like, absolute smash deal when you look at it a year later. But it's Daniel Jones or Aaron Rodgers and a 24 second.
Yeah, I'm actually writing an article right now, and I just put that one on there. So, I'll say this. I mean, Aaron Rodgers got a 2-year deal. Daniel Jones got a 4-year deal. I think that, in 2 years from now, where they're going to be at, I'll say this. I think they're going to be very similar the next 2 years. And then you're most likely going to have Daniel Jones for an additional 2 years. So I'll take that additional 2 years of Daniel Jones for a second round pick. Yep. So I'll take the Danny Dimes.
I get it.
So, all right. So Mr. Carr, I left you with Mr. Carr.
Man, so look, I've had a Derek Carr love for many, many years up to this point. So much that he was my sneaky pick to end up being a top 10 quarterback last season. And let's just say that didn't necessarily come to fruition, seeing as though he found his way to the Pine and then a new team afterwards. But I still don't blame him, and I love Andrew's pick. That's ARAUB23 on Twitter, ARAUB23 on Twitter. Check him out. He does a ton of best ball content. Believe it or not, after we get done right now, you should get off this show and check out Draft Day 2023. They're doing 24 straight hours of best ball drafts. Started at noon today. It's going to go to noon tomorrow, where they're taking all those proceeds from underdog drafts, best ball drafts, and giving them to the I'm Able Foundation, which is all about individuals who are amputees and getting them some prosthetics so that they can continue to be active. So please make sure to go check it out. It's for a great cause, and it's fantasy football. So you're going to have some fun as well. But let's get back to Derek Carr. Look, he had some really serviceable weeks. He supported a hella good wide receiver in Devontae Adams, but he's coming off the board as the QB 22 right now. That is crazy value for a veteran coming into an offense that's got Alvin Kamara, it's got Jamal Williams, it's got Michael Thomas, who looks to be healthy right now, and up-and-coming superstar in Chris Olave, a team that is pretty well-rounded. And the biggest issue with them last year was the proficiency or the efficiency of the quarterback position. They went through multiple guys there, and now Derek Carr brings a little bit of veteran, solid quarterback play that I think can really return on that value. Now, do I think Derek Carr is going to end up being top 10 this season? Absolutely not, but I do think he's going to return on that QB 22 value right now because the team is just too good around him. Not to mention the defenses and the division that he is playing are not good. So that is also going to help.
Yeah, and talking about playing in a dome, he gets to play in the NFC South, which not only is a cakewalk, but you're also playing, in domes or good weather for most of the season. And he's been hitting the gym.
Look at that picture. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the side-by-sides, but he didn't look like that last year. He definitely had to go take a pee test after this picture right here. So I'll be on at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and anybody that wants one of these, so these are golden tickets. If you want, you get just a phone call with me, FaceTime. We'll break down your team, whether it's a dynasty roster, whether you're going to do your redraft this weekend, best ball, whatever. Free call as long as you need, and we'll make sure that you guys go win some championships this year. So make sure you follow A-Rob and J-Mark as well as Sebastian there. Let's go on to the running backs. We got a few different ones, Brad. Let's talk about Miles Sanders.
Oh, my God. All right. So I love the situation that Miles Sanders finds himself in. He ran for 1,300 yards last year, and people are still hating on him. He was RB10 in Fantasy Pros half-point PPR scoring last year, and everybody says, "Well, yeah, but he doesn't catch the ball." Well, look, that offensive play calling staff is talking about how they want to get Miles Sanders involved in the passing game, how they think he has that skill set. And if you look back at his first 2 seasons, you can see that. He had 63 targets his rookie season, followed that up with 52 targets his sophomore season. And then last year, you see 5 yards a carry and 1,300 yards. If this guy gets anywhere close to the volume that we think he can, where he could get 240, 250 touches like he did this year, plus you tack on 50 targets, that's a monster season for a guy that's coming off as the RB. Hang on, I'm still scrolling. The RB20 in redraft leagues right now. So I think that's a screaming value for a guy that has huge upside and no competition in the backfield.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second. First thing I want to do is make sure you guys sign up for Patreon just so you can get exclusive access to our contest. The NFL win totals contest, it's got $1,000 first place prize. So I want to make sure Jamie and all of you other listeners get that. Besides season-long contests, they also have weekly contests just for the Patreons, plus a monthly SGP Stories podcast, completely ad-free and full of behind-the-scenes stories from SGPN. Maybe they'll talk about Kramer and Shula's from the Expo. You'll have to ask Kramer about that. There's even a Discord channel just for Patreons. Only you can prevent corporate gambling. Do your part and sign up today. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. So, yeah, there has been some stuff with Sanders dealing with the groin injury. I don't know how I'm not a doctor, so I'll refer to Sebastian on this one. But with Sanders, I'm not concerned with Blackshear or Hubbard. Hubbard, I think, will be the second guy, and I don't think that Sanders is going to get 95% of the work. Probably gets more of like 65, 70% of the work. But even if he gets 60% of the work, I think he'll be all right. Hubbard will be the next guy up, and then after him, it's Blackshear. But yeah, I like Sanders for where he's at, and he's kind of that low end. We'll call him a bell cow because he appears to be that. We'll see. But remember what Frank Reich has been doing with Jonathan Taylor. We'll see if he does that with Miles Sanders. I know they're different running backs, but if he uses him in any way like he did with Jonathan Taylor, it's going to be great things for Miles Sanders. My guy's Jahmyr Gibbs, and it's funny because I originally was going to go David Montgomery. And so David Montgomery has been a guy that I've just been smashing every single draft as my third or fourth running back. I love the fact that he's going to play on a good offense with the best offensive line he's ever played against. And he's a good running back. Like, I think that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery is a better running back room than DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. And David Montgomery is a better running back than Jamal Williams, who just had over 1,000 yards and 17 touchdowns on the Detroit Lions. Even if Montgomery gets 80% of that, 800 yards and 13 touchdowns, like, that's an amazing season. So I do think Montgomery's a good guy, but Gibbs is the one that I think has league winning upside. If you're looking at someone that could be an Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler type of player, they don't really have anybody outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams, we'll see. And when he comes, is he going to be a volume receiver, or is he going to be a splash play, 3 or 4 targets, 6 targets a game kind of a guy, like a maybe Will Fuller type for the majority of his career? Sam Laporta, he's a young tight end. We'll see how he develops into this offense. We know Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be the guy, and we know that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell absolutely love Jahmyr Gibbs. They were going to draft Bijan Robinson if the Falcons didn't. But they love Jahmyr Gibbs, and they took him earlier than anybody ever expected. And if you get to see the behind-the-scenes footage of the Detroit Lions and how they gushed over Jahmyr Gibbs, you're going to move him up your rankings because they're absolutely in love with this guy.
For sure. But I do want to put you in another trade situation because I know how much you love the young wide receivers when you're looking at rebuilding. So would you rather have, this is almost straight up, Jahmyr Gibbs and a 24 third or Drake London?
Gibbs.
Not even close. You didn't even hesitate with
Yeah.
that. Didn't even hesitate with that. Interesting. Okay.
I like London, but he's got Desmond Ridder for this year. If it doesn't work out, they're going to be back hunting for a quarterback. If it does work out, like, what's it going to look like? I don't think that you can replace Drake London right now.
Go ahead.
And I think that Gibbs is on track for, like, you look at Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara and those guys that they never really got 200 plus touches from a rushing standpoint. They're used differently. Austin Eckler's never had 200 rushing attempts. Alvin Kamara's never had 200 rushing attempts. And those guys still are top 5 or number 1 overall running backs. I think Gibbs could be that type of player, and it extends their career where you can get them further, 27, 28 years old versus some of these guys like Zeke and Dalvin Cook that are breaking down at 26, 27.
Yeah. So I'm struggling because there's no guarantee that backfield doesn't look exactly like it did last year, where DeAndre Swift was relegated to kind of passing work and that's it. And Jamal Williams got all the goal line stuff. Is there any guarantee that you don't see David Montgomery in that Jamal Williams role and you see Jahmyr Gibbs in the DeAndre Swift role?
Nothing's a guarantee, but they took him 12th overall. I think you're going to see them on the field together a lot. I think Gibbs he's more of a pass catcher than Swift is. So it's a good pass catcher. He's a good running back, but he's not necessarily like Gibbs, where he can line up in the slot and actually run routes and do those kind of things. So I think you're going to see a combination of both in the field, but I think they're going to use Gibbs as Brad Holmes said he's not a running back. He's a weapon.
Yep.
And so you're going to see him use that way, not only in the screen
Sometimes
game.
That's concerning though, when it's oh, well, this guy's a weapon. Like, okay, that's very unclear to me. And what
for me,
what
that's
plan on doing. Now I know
that's Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey is what I hear.
But all right,
let's talk about Justin Henry's favorite player.
Ooh, Justin Henry's favorite. All right, look. So I do love me some Damian Harris. Jesus Christ. Damian Pierce. Another Damian. it is challenging for me to really go after this guy when you were looking at an ADP. Let's take a look here. His ADP is Dameon Pierce, RB 15. That is really high right now. So I struggle with a guy who doesn't catch passes. They bring in Devin Singletary, who I'm not saying Devin Singletary is taking his job or whatever. Rookie quarterback, which means, okay, yeah, they're going to try to funnel the ball to Dameon Pierce. They're going to try to run, establish that, and then, get the pass based off the run. But without that pass catching, RB15 feels like a really like a ceiling play to me. So I love him as a talent. I love the way he runs because he's violent and doesn't care. But that's also going to matter from a longevity perspective throughout the year. So I just, at RB15, he's a little too expensive for my taste right now.
Yeah, and so what was said about Dameon Pierce in regards to the love for him is he's a dog. And you can see him not only short yardage, but this guy is aggressive runner. He gets that extra yardage, and he should command the backfield to himself. That's what Bernie's putting down. Not afraid of Devin Singletary, and that's why he's got him here. So if you agree or disagree, let SGPN Bernie know, and please let Justin Henry know how much you love Dameon Pierce, because that's his favorite player in the world.
Would you move a 25 first and a 24 second for Dameon Pierce?
But I'd sell him for that.
Exactly. Like that's a dynasty trade that just went down the 13th. What is that? 3 or 4 days ago. Would you rather have Dameon Pierce or Marvin Mims and a 24 second?
I mean, if you're a contender, need a running back, I'd rather just keep Pierce. I don't think you're getting like a crazy value. Okay. But I do like Mims in a second, and that because Mims is my guy.
And then Dameon Pierce and a 24 first or DK Metcalf.
DK.
Yep. So he's bringing some value right now.
Oh, really I know he is, because I scooped up a whole lot of Dameon Pierce last year. I have 0 shares left, but I sold every single one of them for a 2023 first. And so this is not a typo. J Mark and A Rob are on the same page here, and they like themselves some James Cook. So SGPN is putting the stamp on it, and so James Cook was a guy that I considered. And I know that he's a polarizing player, and there's people out there that absolutely don't like this guy. And I've seen some like anti-James Cook posts where people are just like, I don't get it. And so here's what I get. I played against James Cook in fantasy football last year, and I saw him ripping off 7-8 yards a clip on the ground at 10, 12 yards in the air. He was very efficient, very explosive at the end of the season. And he only it was only the end of the season that he took over the backfield. But man, this guy looked good. And so he is projected to be the lead back. I know Damian Harris is there. But he's expected to be the lead back on one of the best offenses in football. And with the way they were using him last year and how explosive he looked, I think that he's great value at RB 30. Like sign me up.
Yeah, it might be later than that. James Cook is RB 31 right now. Yep. RB 31.5 point PPR. And you talked about how he turned it up in the back half of the season. He had 5 out of the last 8 games he was an RB2 or better. Right. So while that's not like lighting the world on fire, obviously, he was a rookie, not in the primary kind of position to be the running back. And now he's the guy that knows the offense. He started to develop a little bit of trust with Josh Allen and the offensive schemes there. And I think he's going to build on that in year 2. I really like this call. He's definitely a guy I'm a lot higher on than some others. So
yeah, you're paying RB3 prices. Like you're talking about like 8th, 9th round pick. This is like a 0 RB dream. And you're getting a guy that's got what 2nd round draft capital, 3rd round draft capital, and he's a pass catcher. So I know they didn't use him as a pass catcher last year, and that's what a lot of people want to point to. Like he wasn't used in that way, and they kind of expected him to be to be like we talked about with Jahmyr Gibbs a little while ago. This is an offense that was trying to find themselves last year. It was a new offense with Ken Dorsey. They have a full year to get things under their belt, and James Cook started the season off with an injury that kind of prevented him from being implemented into the offense early on in the season. Devin Singletary's out of town. Yes, Damian Harris and Josh Allen are going to take some goal line work. That's fine. He's not a goal line back. That's not my concern here. I'm looking at a guy that is more of a pass catcher as well as big plays. So I saved you your guy that honestly, I was so surprised that you didn't pick him as your guy, J.K. Dobbins.
So here's my excitement. So I was already really high on J.K. Dobbins from a dynasty perspective. But then seeing our football doc, Sebastian, show that vote of confidence in his knee makes me even more excited than I already was. Look, if you look at the end of season stats with J.K. Dobbins, it does not look good. I get it. You look at his ADP, RB20, it does not look great. However, if you actually watched J.K. Dobbins, his explosiveness was legit last season. He had it. What he didn't have was his long speed. Well, I talked about it when we covered GameTime.co. I was at a Browns-Baltimore Ravens game. J.K. Dobbins, the beginning of the season, turned around and had a couple monster runs, short area, making people look ridiculous. But you see him start to hobble at the end of the run. He's getting 30, 40 yards down the field, and he got chased down because he didn't have that long speed back. Now he's a year removed, and at the cost, like Jamie's saying here on the screen, I think it's an absolute smash. Think about what Miles Sanders was able to do with Jalen Hurts, right? I talked about Miles Sanders a little earlier, 1,300 yards with that rushing first quarterback in Jalen Hurts. And now you see a much more explosive athlete playing with Lamar Jackson. If he gets 250 touches, he is a lock to be a top 10 running back by the end of the season. You're muted, bud.
Sebastian basically said the same two things. It's year 2 off the ACL, so you usually see players' explosiveness and all those other things come back. And I looked at some of his metrics before the injury and after the injury, and it was nice to see not only the breakaway percentage, the forced missed tackle rate, the elusiveness rating, they were all the same. And so this guy, he really is one of the best running backs in the league. And he has been able to stay healthy. And as long as he can stay healthy, every season, 10 plus snaps, he's got 15 plus points. And he's got a good offensive line, have a good offense there. I think and man, this is good. Zay Flowers looks so good. You better get him on your team. And let's talk about receivers. Let's talk about Zay Flowers, who almost made my guys, but I didn't want to go all rookies here.
Yeah.
Brad, let's talk about Mr. Elijah Moore.
Look, I don't have a whole bunch of stats to back this up. I've got a couple. If you go back and look at his rookie season, everybody knows those five weeks he had between week 9 and week 13. He was on fire. He was the PFF rated number 6 wide receiver. He was creating 3.5 yards of separation, had over 21% of his team's target area yards. He was just heavily targeted and looked to be the real deal coming out of Ole Miss. Everybody loved him. I know I was crazy high on him. And then the mess that was 2022 hit, and nobody, it just didn't click. He got upset with his role. Look, maybe he's got some maturity issues. I get it. But he finds himself in a situation where he gets a fresh start with a quarterback that we've seen be elite before. I'm not going to say he's elite right now because I think that would not be justice, but we've seen Deshaun Watson be elite before. So quarterbacks, we've heard the term, quarterbacks don't forget how to be elite. Now, it's whether or not he still has a skill set, he can process all of those things. But I think coming into a team that we know wants to throw the ball a little bit more, and the skill set that Elijah Moore has to just get open at will and create separation at will, Deshaun Watson doesn't force the ball. He doesn't turn the ball over. So having somebody like Elijah Moore to be a security blanket, I think is going to be huge. And it would not shock me if this dude is the target leader for the Cleveland Browns. Even as much as I love and believe Amari Cooper is an absolute stud, I think we could see Elijah Moore lead this team in touches at the wide receiver position. So I'm calling my shot. I'm trying to get him everywhere I can. Unfortunately, there's a lot of teams that I'm in leagues with, a lot of savvy players that are like, whoa. Like, we're not selling him to you for a second rounder. We want a late first. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. So maybe I'm not as high as I should be on him, but he is definitely my guy this year.
Yeah, and Elijah Moore had 6 touchdowns in 6 games that rookie year. Yep. He was wide receiver 3 during those 6 weeks. That just doesn't happen. Like that's not like, okay, like this guy had a fluke. No, like that doesn't happen.
6
it was
game sample size.
Yeah, it was 6 games in a row.
Yep.
With whoever throwing at quarterback. So yeah, I understand the concerns, because what, Garrett Wilson thrived in that offense and other players have played well. Here's the deal. Elijah Moore's got some maturity issues and he's not a good run blocker. Those are the reasons that he fought with the team. He definitely, I definitely think the Browns put a high enough investment in him. They could have drafted Jonathan Mingo or Marvin Mims or Jaden Reed. Instead, they traded for Elijah Moore. And that tells me a lot about how they feel about him because he's only got 1 more year in his deal after this year. And so they're going to have to pay him or they're going to lose that draft pick for nothing, like the Bears are doing with Chase Claypool. So I love Elijah Moore this year. I just hope his value stays in a spot where I can continue to get him as my, RB5 or receiver 5.
Yep. Yep.
Keenan Allen. Every year, this could be my guy every year. I just love Keenan Allen. I love these big slot receivers. They're especially in your PPR formats, they're great. And Keenan Allen, people want to talk about how he's like always hurt. At the beginning of his career, yes. But last year he played 10 games. Before that, 16, before that 15, before that 16. This guy has been healthy. Last year, he just missed 6 games in a row with a hamstring injury. When he came back, he was wide receiver 4. He's got one of the best quarterbacks in football on one of the best offenses in football. And he's the main piece after Austin Eckler. Sign me up for Keenan Allen in the 3rd round every single league.
Wide receiver 2 or better in his final 8 games, coming off the board as the wide receiver 19. Dude, that's a smash in redraft leagues. It's crazy to see how far he dropped as good as he was when he came back. Yeah. Now, Mike Williams missed some of those games, so there is a narrative that you can push to say, well, that's kind of fluky, but that's not fluky because Keenan Allen's really freaking good and has been for a long time.
Nah, he's been discount DeAndre Hopkins for a long time. And so you can go and get CMC in the 1st round, get Mark Andrews in the 2nd, get Keenan Allen in the 3rd. I mean, this guy could be your number 1 receiver. You don't have to, but like this guy's a beast. Let's talk about Bernie's pick, DK Metcalf.
I love it. I love DK Metcalf. He's got that mentality. He'll block. He'll go up and get it. He's got the speed. Geno Smith and that offense just clicked last year. My biggest concern here is, and it's never been a huge narrative for me with a lot of players, but there really are a whole lot of mouths to feed here. There's Kenneth Walker, there's Zach Charbonnet, there's
Noah Fant.
JSN. What's that?
Noah Fant.
What? I was going to leave him off the list this time. There's Tyler Lockett, there's JSN, and there's DK. I don't know. I want to like all of these guys. I just don't know that Geno can support all 5 of them from the passing game. So somebody is going to lose out here. Is it DK? Is it Lockett? Is it JSN in year 1? What does that look like? DK had an okay season last year, but I think, unfortunately, you may be looking at his ceiling moving into this season as the wide receiver 15 coming off the board. He's going to have some boom weeks, don't get me wrong, but I think throughout the season, there are going to be some of those weeks that you just don't trust either. So I like him. At his ADP, it's probably as high as I would be willing to go, but if I could get him a little discounted, I'd be even more excited.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how much those running backs eat into the receiving game, but I do understand what you're saying. When, Lockett, JSN, and DK Metcalf, all 3 of them can't be wide receiver 1s every week.
Right.
And so you're going to have guys go away and things like that. So let's move on to the next.
You mind if I throw a couple trades at you for this one?
Of course.
All right. So this is where you start to think, okay, Sam Darnold and DK Metcalf or Brandon Ayuk in a 24-2.
I mean, I really like Ayuk. Sam Darnold doesn't mean anything to me in that trade.
Yep.
So it's basically Ayuk in a second for DK.
Yep.
I'll take Ayuk.
Yeah, I'm leaning the Ayuk side. DK Metcalf, David Montgomery, and a second, or Dak Prescott and DJ Moore.
Dak and DJ.
Yeah, he's bringing a good amount of value right now, and I think that ceiling is marked off a little bit.
It'll be interesting because Tyler Lockett's a guy that, especially with his contract and stuff, could be moved on from. And so if you're looking at DK Metcalf and JSN next year, that could be, very interesting as DK see a kind of a bounce back.
Absolutely.
All right. Speaking of Brandon Ayuk, the doc has Brandon Ayuk. Brad, you want to talk about him?
Dude, I love him. He's so discounted right now. I'm watching DK Metcalf go off in the 4th round, or Deebo Samuel get drafted in the 4th round. And you get Brandon Ayuk in the 6th or 7th round, and he finished better than Deebo. I like him. He's a better, more well-defined wide receiver. I get Deebo is this all-around skill set, can be moved around, and is an absolute beast with the ball in his hand. But you could clearly tell that Ayuk was had more of the eye of Brock Purdy than what Deebo did. George Kittle had more of the eye than Deebo did. So I just like the upside that you're going to get with Brandon Ayuk. Even with Brock Purdy being consistently 200 yards and a couple touchdowns every week, I just think he is going to end up being an elite producer at the wide receiver position. And at the ADP of, I don't even see him yet. It is wide receiver 29. He was he 15, I think, last year?
15.
And that's with only Brock Purdy there for 7 games or whatever it was. So of the regular season, 6 or 7 games of the regular season. So I really like the value of Brandon Ayuk right now.
Yeah. Sebastian called him the ugly stepsister. I don't know what it is, but people still continue to draft Deebo Samuel over him. Yep. And it makes no sense. And so we had Jagger May on the show a few months ago, and him and I are both, big Brandon Ayuk fans. I got into it with Chase Vernon on his show, and I was like, Brandon Ayuk over Terry McLaurin, hands down. And so he was jaw drop shocked that I said that. But you talk about the bell of the ball. He was Jimmy's favorite receiver other than George Kittle as well. Yep. Deebo had 6 good weeks 2 years ago, and people are still paying, chasing those points.
Way too much money.
And so, yeah. So I'll go with J Mark and talk about Calvin Ridley. I get it. This guy hasn't played football in 2 years, and there's some concerns. But I'll tell you right now, this guy's good at football. He's been one of the best route runners in the game for a very long time. And I love the fact that he's going to a situation with Doug Peterson and with Trevor Lawrence. He was left in a really tough situation having to fill the shoes of Julio Jones with an aging Matt Ryan and a team with Dan Quinn that really was kind of crumbling. And so he had the mental health, and you got to take that seriously. And then he had that suspension that was just stupid. I mean, this guy got suspended for a year. I get it. He shouldn't have done that. But, I mean, come on. We know some other guys did some other really bad stuff and didn't get a year. And so Calvin Ridley is a guy that I absolutely I think has top 10, top 12 upside. And, yeah, the ADP is coming up a little bit, but you're still getting him in wide receiver 2 range. And in this offense with Trevor Lawrence, he could easily be a wide receiver 1. Well, Chase is a Washington homer. I'd rather have Ayuk over Terry too. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Chase Vernon. Absolutely. Thanks, Jamie. Make sure you let him know about it. So speaking of Washington, we got shout out to Trophy Smack. Shout out to Andrew Robb. And he went a little homer and picked Jahan Dotson. Let's talk about it, Brad.
I love it. I don't know if you could hear my stuff going off there. I don't know what was happening. Hopefully you didn't hear it over the mic. No? Nothing?
I didn't hear anything. I got a bunch of banging dishes.
All right, good deal, good deal. Hey, look, 7 touchdowns through his first. 4 touchdowns through his first 4 games. Plus, he got hurt, comes back, scores 3 more touchdowns, has 100 yards a couple times. This dude is a red zone machine. He's got hella good hands, and he did come from my alma mater, Penn State. So maybe there's a little bit of Penn State Nittany Lions love there as well, but. Look, I think Sam Darnold, I did it again. Sam Howell is a better option than either of the quarterbacks that he saw throwing to him last season. I think the stability there, new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, I do think he's going to bring something different to that offense. He's going to spice it up a little bit. They want to see what Sam Howell can do. Plus, do we really believe in Curtis Samuel anymore? I used to be really high on Curtis Samuel, but I think that Jahan Dotson's the 2 to me. Jahan Dotson is the red zone guy, and I just think he's going to smash his current ADP of way down here, wide receiver 38, right? I mean, when you see 7 touchdowns through the 10 games that he played or so, you bet now extrapolate that over a whole season, you hope. I know touchdowns aren't necessarily sticky, but he's going to a second year in an offense, second year in the NFL, another season with Sam Howell. It's just, I think you're going to see some good things from him. So I really liked Andrew's picks up to this point.
All right. Well, shout out to Andrew. I like J Mark's picks, and I like FF Bourbon Dude's picks. Let's go. This one was a little spicy. A little bit further down the board, Irv Smith. Let's talk about it.
Look, I've always liked the late tight end draft style in redraft leagues. I've always punted that position. Now, I haven't played tight end premium redraft leagues. I've played quite a bit of tight end premium in most of my dynasty leagues, but in redraft, I haven't been in a tight end premium outside of the Scott Fish Bowl. And even then, I've been kind of punting that tight end a little bit in there. So Irv Smith he's my highest owned player in some of these redraft leagues because I just think he's a really good, solid player. If he can stay healthy. Now, do I roll into the season with him as my only tight end? Absolutely not. But we saw Hayden Hurst be a very usable tight end for about half the season. About 8 weeks, and he was basically free. Irv Smith is stepping into a very similar role, if not the exact same role, and I think he's more athletic, and he's faster than Hayden Hurst. I think he gives Joe Burrow another big-time weapon to put some points on the board, and I think it could be a very interesting season for Irv Smith where we might get to see this tight end break out. Everybody wants these tight ends to be like year 1, year 2 breakout. That does not typically happen. It takes some time. And especially with Irv Smith, not only with time, he had some injuries mixed in there as well. So I'm rolling with Irv Smith right now, late in my redraft leagues. I mean, he's basically free. Let's see what the ADP is real quick, just before. Irv Smith, tight end 19, right around Dawson Knox and Jawan Johnson and Luke Musgrave, Michael Mayer.
Where's that Mike Gesicki going?
Mike Gesicki is tight end 25.
Yeah, and we're looking at one quarterback PPR redraft. And I know this is usually a dynasty show, but and as far as the as far as Irv Smith, I know everyone's a little worn out with the Irv Smith breakout. It's been 3 years, 4 years coming. We'll see.
And in the making for a long time.
He's going to be the fourth or fifth option on this team, so the upside's capped. But this is a very good offense, and you could definitely see some serviceable weeks. I think it's a good streaming option. And if someone were to go down, a Tyler Boyd or something like that, you could see some increase. Gesicki's interesting. I heard a lot of good stuff about him in camp. So I'm going to go, and in this one, I thought hard about this one because it's so unlikely for a rookie tight end to hit. And so here's why most rookie tight ends don't hit. They have to learn how to block. They learn how to play receiver. And takes a while. And then and a lot of the actual stuff. But here's the Bills aren't going to ask him to be a lineman. They drafted him in the first round. They've been using him out of the slot. And if you look at their team, their current second receiver, third is a combination of Deontay Hardy and Khalil Shakir. And they've been running a lot of 2 tight end sets where Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid are on the field together. And they're very similar when it had Hernandez and Gronk out there. They're not asking Kincaid to block. And so I think this guy's going to be heavily used in route participation, and he's essentially going to be their slot receiver. And we've seen this team heavily target the slot. And on top of it, you want a guy that can get open and create separation. Stephon Diggs and Dalton Kincaid. That's going to be your number 1 and number 2 targets in the red zone for Josh Allen. So I could see a world where this guy gets 8 to 10 touchdowns. Maybe he doesn't get 1,000 yards receiving, but if he can go and get 70 or 80 targets and get 15 to 20 red zone targets, he could be an absolute smash. And a lot of people are fading him because he's a rookie tight end. And so I'm going to take the shot on him as my second tight end. Or if I go get him, I'll get a safer option in the back, like a Tyler Higbee or something like that. But I'm going to go with the high upside of Kincaid.
I love that. I mean, it makes sense. That's really all you hear about is him lining up in the slot, out wide, this, that. You don't hear anything about him being a down tight end, inline tight end. And Dawson Knox kind of has that role. So, like you said, do they have anybody outside of Gabe Davis, really? And there's question marks around Gabe Davis even, right? So it's definitely a feasible thing that we see Dalton Kincaid be at least number 2 in targets for this team. So that's enough to get to where you're talking about. So,
and Daniel Jeremiah talked about it. He said, listen, I saw the Chargers use a top 10 draft to go and try to stop Travis Kelce. And I've seen Travis Kelce dominate games every single year. You don't try to stop the Chiefs. You go and try to outscore them. And so you go and add a weapon. So what do the Bengals do? They go get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. What do the Chiefs, what do the Bills got to do? They're going to add a weapon. And they tried to add one of the receivers, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson, but those guys went before their pick. And so they got Dalton Kincaid, who, in my opinion, it's a jumbo receiver. He's more of an Evan Ingram type of player. He's not necessarily your traditional tight end.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to Justin Bruni and SGPN Bruni's content around the tight end, and it's going to be Tyler Conklin, tight end from the New York Jets. And Bruni, I swear I'm not trying to crap on you with all your picks here, man, but I'm low on this one too. But I do see this could be looked at the same lens as I do with the Irv Smith one, right? So I could see there's some similarities here. But here's the thing. Here's my sticking point with this. Aaron Rodgers and Robert Tonyan over the last 5 years. You know Robert Tonyan's touchdowns those 5 seasons? 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns. 11 touchdowns. 1 touchdown. 1 touchdown. So 4 of his 5 seasons with Aaron Rodgers netted him 6 total touchdowns, and then he had the outlier 11 touchdown season. If you want to rely on that 11 touchdown season and say, hey, that's what we think Tyler Conklin could be, then but we added Dalvin Cook. They brought in Alan Lazard, who Aaron Rodgers loves. They have Garrett Wilson, who is the target hog of that offense, and they still have Breece Hall as well. Plus, they brought in Randall Cobb. I'm not really worried about that. But they have Corey Davis, too, who I don't think it's fair to just kind of throw to the wayside. So that just like you talked about with Irv Smith, there's a lot of mouths there. He's like the 5th option at best. But the fact that Aaron Rodgers doesn't really support a tight end, and he never really has, that concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, I think Conklin's so cheap. And so that's
30 tight end 30. He's likely undrafted.
Yeah, so if you're looking at Irv Smith at tight end 19 or Tyler Conklin at tight end 30, the likelihood of either of them hitting is probably similar. And the price is good. They're both just so buried on the depth chart and the totem pole. I'm still taking those guys over Noah Fant. I'm just kidding. They're probably sitting at the same table as Noah Fant. Where it just, it's going to take somebody else probably.
Whoa. Noah Fant's tight end 33. He's underneath both of these guys,
okay.
Right?
They're like split in the middle between the big kids table and the kids table. They're the big kids table. They're not sitting with the big guys. They're sitting at the big kids table, and then Noah Fant sitting by himself with one of those little hats on, the little cone hat.
Yeah.
And sitting at the little kids table. But Conklin, the worst thing, if he needs to, he can just go be in one of those Vikings Netflix series, Uhtred, because he just straight up looks like a Viking. I don't know if you've seen all of his tattoos, but that dude is he's tatted up. Everything below the beard is tatted. So let's do a shout out to our guys. Actually, we're not done. We got more tight ends. J Mark went with Dallas Goedert on the stage. And I'm taking the pretty easy here for my guy. Dallas Goedert is really good at football, and he's been good for a long time. And so Dallas Goedert is a guy that you could. There's a path where this guy ends up as a top 3 tight end. It could easily happen. And so you're getting him, in the mid rounds, probably the round 7, 8, 9. And he's got some really good value. I got him as my Scott Fishbowl tight end. So I'm a fan of Dallas Goedert, even though he's an Eagle.
Yeah, it's interesting because Fantasy Pros has him as the number 6 tight end, going off behind Kelce, Andrews, Hawkinson, Kittle, and Pitts. But I've seen both Darren Waller and Evan Ingram go above him multiple drafts. So if you can get him at the tight end 8 spot, that's a killer deal.
Well, when I looked at it, Waller was ahead of him.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's nuts. Nutsy cuckoo.
I'll take Waller over Goddard.
Ooh, nutsy cuckoo. No way.
Waller's the number 1 on the offense. Goddard's number 3.
You could argue Dallas Goedert is number 2. You really, as much as I love Devonta Smith, He really didn't start hitting until Dallas got it hurt. So
I get it. I say the same thing.
yeah.
We'll see. We'll
all
see.
Right, let's move on to Chig. Look, I get it. We're projecting. We want to see more of this super athletic tight end. The news of Treylon Burks, while it sucks for Treylon Burks, it might. Well, it's not that it might. It is definitely good news for Chig and his opportunity in that offense with Ryan Tannehill and DeAndre Hopkins moving all that coverage towards him. So I think coming off as a tight end 12, with that Treylon Burks news, I'm okay with that price, and he really could pay up. I mean, is it unfeasible to think that he could finish above Cole Kmet, David Njoku, and Pat Freiermuth, who's right next to him? I don't think so. I think he could return and be a top 10 tight end because of that. So
I know I said it was probably blasphemous that I said it on Monday, but like I think Brian Tannehill is becoming a really good value in your league. So you talk about a guy that's going for like free. He's got Chig, he's got Derrick Henry, I really think that, coaching matters, and he's got a great coach. Last year he was dealing with a foot injury almost all year. They got DeAndre Hopkins now. Like, he's got a decent set of weapons. Burks is not out for the season. Kyle Phillips is there. Not Nick Westbrook-Ikine. They got some other pieces. So
that's like me talking about Noah Fant. You're bringing up Kyle Phillips.
All right. It's like saying Zach Charbonnet is going to take a whole lot of receiving work. I get it.
He might.
Yeah,
he might.
It's like Kyle. I think Kyle Phillips and Charbonnet targets. We'll keep track of those.
I might take that bet. I'll
take Kyle Phillips in that bet. And so Chig is a guy again projecting Jonnu Smith, kind of a player, and they're trying to recapture that very high. Very high as far as, the metrics, but very low, very low sample size. Pat Freiermuth is next guy, Sebastian's pick, another guy that's very close to that top 6. He's your kind of mid-round tight end. And for me, I like the pick, but I think you're probably getting him at his ceiling. You're getting him at like 7, 8, or 9, and that's probably where he's going to finish, because you talk about a guy that's probably not top, 2 on his team. Could be 3 or 4. You're looking at a guy that has a team that has George Pickens, has Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris, and then they also got Allen Robinson and Calvin Austin on the team as well, and Darnell Washington. So I don't know if Kenny Pickett's going to be able to produce enough to support Pickens and Johnson, let alone other pieces like Pat Freiermuth and, we talk about Calvin Austin or Allen Robinson. So Freiermuth probably is the number 3 on the team, and he probably ends up as a top 10 tight end. I just don't know if he's going to be, someone that gives you that much upside on a weekly basis, and I don't think you're going to get much profit for where you're drafting him.
Yeah, I mean, he's that middle tight end, right? He's coming off the board at tight end 9. He had almost 100 targets last year. Just a couple touchdowns, but if you look his rookie season, he had 7 touchdowns. So is it unreasonable to think that you could continue to see 100? He only needs 2 more targets. He had 98. So could he see 100 targets, 700 yards, and 7 touchdowns? I think it's reasonable that you could see something like that. Now, you need to see that offense do better than they did, right? Where, the second half of the season, they were clearly moving the ball. They just couldn't convert it into touchdowns. So we want to see those touchdowns start to hit. You want to see Pickens start to, open up the offense a little bit more. You want to see Kenny Pickett grow a little bit. So I think you can see him with that. We've always talked about, you want if you can get a tight end that can get 100 targets, that's pretty solid. That's a top 5 type of tight end season. And if he can stack 6, 7 touchdowns on top of it, I think you can find yourself with a top 6, top 5 tight end.
Yeah, 100 targets is guaranteed top 12 tight end.
Yeah.
If you can get 1,000 air yards, you're talking about a top 6 tight end. So that's what I want to see.
He's not going to be that air yards guy.
And that's really kind of where I'm at with him. Is you're drafting him at tight end 8 or 9. He's probably going to finish tight end 7 or 8 at best. Let's go in, and this is a special shout out again. SGPN Fantasy. We got a whole lot of different and I always tell everybody every offseason, try different types of fantasy football if you enjoy it. At the Expo, we learned about 100 different ways to play fantasy football, but SGPN has got 9 different channels. We talk about best ball. We talk about DFS, Dynasty. We talk about Devi. We talk about IDP. And so Gary, Craig, and Johnny do a great job. So I got the IDP tipster. If you play IDP, this is for you. We got right here from this guy, John Johnson with the Rams. He used to be on the Rams, went to the Browns, went back to the Rams where he, helped him get paid. He's a guy that you're going to want to target. And that's one of Gary's my guys. And the other guys on the board, I'm not an IDP guy, so I want to make sure I get them right for you. I know Alex Singleton.
Alex Singleton, right?
Yep, Alex Singleton, inside linebacker right there. And Alex Singleton is definitely a guy that just racks up. Him and Josie Jewell just rack them up.
Tackles.
And so that's going to be an interesting defense there. I know Sean Payton has a new defensive coordinator over there, but this guy he lines up tackles. Ex-Giant here, Dalvin Tomlinson, run stuffer, eats up the middle, and you're going to have him. And then this is Carl Granderson from the Saints. And so the Saints had both their, they really keep churning out defensive ends and sending them to free agency. So they just had their defensive end go to Minnesota, got paid pretty well. And they had their other, edge go to the Atlanta Falcons and get paid pretty well. So Granderson goes in there and he's going to be that other outside edge. And he's going to be, an IDP person you're going to want to go after, according to Gary, the IDP tipster. Brad, we're going over an hour. That's all I got.
I'm good, man. I'm ready to
rock.
Right.
Well, everybody, as always, thanks for checking in. Thanks for listening. Hit that subscriber button. We appreciate you. Good luck this season.
Cheers.